Hi! So when I'm not wearing girl clothing or dressed up in a dog costume, I do a lot of stuff with cameras and I have quite a bit of a collection. So I thought it might be an interesting video for me to just go through and talk about all of them. If you're interested in cameras, you might find this kind of like interesting. And if you're not, it's going to be really easy to fall asleep to. So it's kind of a win-win no matter what. It's already late and this is going to take me actually forever to record, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And I don't know where to start. Let's start with this. This is the Olympus XA. This is a 35mm rangefinder camera. It's one of the smallest in the world. Normally, a camera of this size is going to be zone focus. Zone focus is where you guess how far away your subject is, and then you just set a dial to that distance. Some people are really good at this, but it's guessing, so it's impractical. But in this camera, you don't have to worry about that. There's a rangefinder built in. There's a little window in the viewfinder, and when both images of the item you're looking at overlap, it's in focus. This camera is really cool as well because it's really the smallest full-frame rangefinder, maybe except the Pentax T or something like that. It has a really nice build quality. I thought it would be made of like plastic, but it's not. It feels metally, if it actually is or not. And it shoots an aperture priority, which is really useful because that's typically how I shoot. And it's nice to have something so small that you can put in your pocket. So this has a flash, but if you take the flash off, it's even smaller and you can pocket it, take it around with you. So really cool little camera. I took this around Iceland like a year ago and it was really fun to take pictures with. So following that up, I have the Olympus XA2. This is the sequel to the original XA, and it has no inbuilt rangefinder, which is too bad, but it's still a good camera. You have to do the zone focusing, but these can be had for pretty cheap, and it's a solid camera. Again, the build quality is pretty good. Something I really like about the original XA is there's an overexposure dial on the bottom. You can set it to overexpose your image slightly, and the idea is that if you're taking a picture of somebody in front of a sunset, the camera would normally expose for the bright background, but you can use this corrector to expose for your subject. And unfortunately, the XA2 doesn't have that, but it still has a self-timer on the bottom, which is cool. Most self-timers in film cameras don't work because nobody ever uses them, so they get sticky and over time just die. Because this is like powered electronically. So next, let's go for something a little bit more classic. This is a Kiev 6C, also known as a Kiev 60. This is a medium format SLR camera. When these were released, probably the 60s or the 70s if I had to take a guess. In the USSR, they would basically take designs from different camera companies and the state would like mass produce their own version of them. So you can find a lot of really interesting cameras from the USSR. There's the Leningrad, the Zenit, there's the Zorky. These are, with the exception of the Leningrad, those are all basically Leica ripoffs. And those are cool because they frequently use lenses of the same mount as Leicas. So you can sometimes get a old Leica rangefinder experience for pretty affordably because there was a lot of these cameras produced. Anyway, this is all to say that this is a sort of a bootleg of the Pentax 6, I believe, which was a German medium format 6x6 SLR, very similar to this one. It is known for having a pretty bad winding mechanism. It's like very prone to breaking, and the Soviets really went above and beyond with this because this has the same problem, although it might be for different reasons. I used to own one of these in college, but I bought this not too long ago just because it has some sentimental value to it. It's such an interesting camera. I really like how the shutter fires. If we go ahead and wind it here. And then you click. It's just very satisfying. Something about it, it's very clunky. Something really unique about this is you'll notice that the shutter button is on the left, which is fairly unusual. Typically, it would be over here. It reminds me of this whole like trope. Oh, in America, you watch TV, but in Soviet Russia, the TV watches you. It's backwards in a way that I find amusing. The appeal of this is that they can be had for pretty affordably. There's also like a SLR made by Kiev that is more in the style of a Hasselblad, and those these days can go for a lot of money. I think in general, these things are only really worth it if you're going to be buying it cheaply, or if you're buying one of the ARAX versions. There's a company in Ukraine who, even through the war, have been fixing and upgrading these cameras, basically fixing all the flaws and issues with them. And they seem really amazing. I would love to get my hand on one both of my hands even, just to like mess around with it, because I don't know, it's very unique, very interesting. I know there's some of these that have been converted to 645, which is cool. Yeah, it's a neat camera. Keeping with a Soviet theme, this is a Lubitel 166B. This is a medium format TLR, also from the USSR. And what is noteworthy about these guys is that they can be had for pretty cheaply. And it's like a proper TLR. When you're looking at budget TLR cameras, something you're frequently going to see is cameras where the focus is fixed. You can't change focus, it's just focused on infinity. This can be a problem, to say the least. But this one does have a real focusing mechanism, and the viewfinder is pretty bright, albeit it's a little bit weird. You can see that you're actually like looking straight through the viewfinder lens right here, when normally it would be projected onto like a ground glass. And the reason why they did this, but I have to assume it makes it brighter. But it also means you have to look at it from a very specific angle. I got this for like $50. I know like Lomography re-released these not too long ago and have them for $400 or something, and I think that's I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. A very cool little camera though. I really like the character. I like how the blur looks, I guess. I don't know. Something about it that I find very appealing. Okay. Next, let's do something really simple. This is a Diana. This is a sort of medium format toy camera. These, I believe, are made by a company in China. Nobody knows who Diane is. I think the consensus is it's just a name. But basically, this camera is really fun, and it has some unique things about it. These are the same thing as a Holga, which, if you're not familiar, toy camera. Again, you're zone focusing by just moving the lens to a distance written on the front, and you're just hoping that you get it in focus. The lenses are typically made of plastic, so they're not sharp. They're typically very soft, out of focus. There's vignetting. These are all things that, in general, I really would hate about a camera. But there's something about these and this and a Holga that I find really fascinating. There's something very empowering taking pictures and just, I can't describe it. You have to try it. There's something about just walking around, snapping one of these. You just compose your shot and you do it. And some of my favorite pictures have come out of cameras like this. You can really do a lot with some really severe limitations, and I just think it's fascinating. Granted, you hear people talk about the best camera is the one you have and all this stuff. And then they'll be like me, where they're sitting here with 50 different cameras of all different kinds. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, but in general, I think something like this is really cool, and they can be had for like next to no money. So it's worth having, especially with the cost of film these days. You could arguably get one of these for the cost of a roll of film, and at that point, it's like it doesn't make sense to not have it. Something really unique about the Dianas is it actually is smaller than medium format. I would have to check and see. Generally, on a 6x6 roll of medium format film, you're going to get, what, like 12 shots, I think? And on this, you can get like 16. And that's because they just expose like a 4x4 square instead of the 6x6. It's a unique thing. I'm not a huge fan of having parts of the negative just empty. That's something it feels wrong to me. I really enjoyed this, and I didn't think I would, so you should definitely try it. Okay, so this one is interesting. This is an Argus C4. Now, Argus is an American camera company that's actually, it was based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. So it's a cool thing because I've been to the factory where many of these were made. Argus made some of their cameras in Australia, strangely enough. I really find these interesting. Another Argus camera, which I don't have handy right now, is the C3. It's not iron, but it feels like it. It's like an iron brick is how I describe it. And this is the model released after that, and it represents a significant upgrade in the designs they were coming up with. I think it's a handsome camera. I don't know, it's got 50mm lens that's not removable, and it's a rangefinder. It's a solid camera, and it's very capable. An interesting wrinkle about these cameras is there's a very rare version. There's only supposed to be like 12 in the world or something of these that were made in black. And it's not really black, it's more of a purplish chrome color. The rumor is that those were made for like the US military or something. There's a sort of genre of film camera called a tropical camera. And if you ever see one of these, it's typically a camera that is either doesn't have any leatherette on it, or it has some kind of special paint color. And the idea is someone, typically a government agency, would commission a camera company to produce a camera that is suitable for a high humidity environment. And this is really probably was more of an important thing back when cameras were made of wood, because obviously wood and humidity can sometimes not get along. But the thought is that the black Argus C4 is a humidity resistant version of this. And the rumor is that there's only 12 of those currently known to man, if that's really true or not. But pretty unique camera. And I will say that it's always been hammered in my head that if you ever see like a black Argus, you got to take a double take and be like, oh my God, is that the rare one? Okay, so up next is a black Argus C4. This is the one I was just talking about. Like I said, these were supposed to have, there's supposed to be like 12 in the world is the number I keep seeing, but I've seen probably about 20 of them. So that probably is not correct. I say seen, I mean, I'm aware of probably around 20, including this one. So these are pretty unique. As I stated, they're very pretty. The thing that's sad about this one is it appears to be some kind of hodgepodge, the circumstances in which this camera was created, but you can see on it that the bottom plate is silver, and originally it would have been black. Same with the name thing right here, but if you open up the internals of the camera, you can see it's like copper or brass coated or whatever, which indicates it's the internals from one of these black C4s. So what the story of this thing is. It's either that somebody like totaled the bottom of one of the black C4s and sent it in and got it like replaced with different parts. And obviously they didn't have any of these rare black parts left over, so they just used silver. Or it's some kind of like factory made hodgepodge. I like to imagine some employee had the extra bits of a C4 laying around and they said, oh, let's throw it together. It's probably wishful thinking, but I will say on the bottom of this, there's no serial number, and normally that's where the serial number for one of these would be. So this means that the bottom plate is a replacement plate, but one made by Argus, specifically for that purpose, which I feel like supports my wishful thinking a little bit, because it's not like somebody just took the bottom plate off this and switched it with. There's a lot of people much more knowledgeable about this than me, so I'm gonna shut up. Okay. Up next is an interesting one. This is a Canon SureShot Ace. This is a 35mm point and shoot camera made by Canon, of course. And you'll see that it looks like a normal, just like plastic point and shoot camera. And it is, but it has some interesting features that I think make it really special. So for starters, I think the elephant in the room is this. It has a waist level viewfinder. It's hard to see here, but basically you can preview picture from waist level. And I think that's a very special thing. Shooting on a Hasselblad or a TLR, oftentimes you'll have a waist level viewfinder that you look down onto, and it can change your perspective on the composition and the type of picture you're taking and stuff. So to have one in a point and shoot, so compact and also relatively affordable, I think it's really special. The only other point and shoot camera I know of that would do that is like the, what is it? Is it Yashica? No. There's the T4. What am I thinking of? Maybe I'll put it up on screen, but the T4 had a waist level finder, and those cameras are ridiculously expensive. This is a poor man's version of that. The other thing that I really like about it is it has a remote built in. So if you take a look, this side piece comes off, and then you have a little remote that you can use to take pictures. Additionally, on the bottom here, there's this little red thing, which is actually a, there you go. It's actually a little tripod thing. So what you do is you like use your fingernail to move it. Maybe it's broken on this one. But basically, you can move that and it comes out at an angle, and then when you put it on a table, it'll point upwards a little bit so you can step back and you'll still be in the frame. I will say they're very fragile. One drop on the ground is gonna totally destroy this thing. And to prove that point, and I know this because I've had 4 or 5 of them. Here's another one that I had handy that took a tumble. Now, I think I might be able to fix it, but you can see I already tried to 3D print like a new latch or something for it. Very cool camera. Luckily, they're fairly cheap right now. I think most of the ones I have I've gotten for less than $40. If you're gonna go much more than that, like, I would really encourage you to wait around for a good deal, because otherwise it's in that cameras are like, people really like them and they talk about them, and oftentimes the underlying context is that it's really good for the price. It's a steal of a deal to get a camera like this for $40. But then people buy them, the price increases, people still buy them, and then suddenly you have it for $100, $200, $300, $400, and it's like suddenly not that good of a deal anymore. Yeah, so if you can find a good deal, I think it's a great camera. It's fun to have. Up next, let's use this guy, this is a Bessa L. This is a unique camera because you'll notice it doesn't have a rangefinder on it, nor does it have a viewfinder of any kind. Mine is without a lens right now because the only L39 mount lens that I have handy on me is a 50mm lens taken from one of those Soviet rangefinder cameras. And the thing with this is it doesn't have a viewfinder, so how are you supposed to use it? The idea is that you're going to be using like a really wide angle lens with this. Rangefinders in general tend to have specific frame lines in the viewfinder. Sometimes it'll be 75mm, 50, 35. And if you want to shoot a wider angle lens, you're going to have to use an external viewfinder. And if you do that, then suddenly you can't really use the rangefinder mechanism without looking through the rangefinder, focusing, and then composing with the external viewfinder. So I think the idea was they said, let's cut out the middleman, let's remove the rangefinder entirely, and we can make like a cheaper camera. Which is not that bad of an idea, honestly. It's a really nice camera. I think it has a really good feel to it. It is made of plastic, but a very capable plastic, I guess you could say. So you'd be probably zone focusing with this. If you're gonna have a wide angle lens, your depth of field is gonna be pretty big, which means that you don't have to worry too much about nailing focus. Up next, let's try a really interesting camera that I've been messing with recently. So the story with this is a friend of the channel, Puss, who I'm sure will comment on this, found this in a thrift store and sent it to me, sent me a picture and was like, do you know what this is? And I said, I know exactly what this is. This is a Yashica Dental Eye. Which is so funny that I knew that. But anyway, the Yashica Dental Eye is, hence the name, a camera made by Yashica for dentists. It's designed so that you can take a picture of somebody's tooth. The thing that's really interesting about it is it really only does that. You can't focus to infinity on this. You can only focus super up close and like fairly far away. Or, excuse me. You can only focus super up close or like a few feet away. It's really interesting and very strange. If you take a look at it, it kind of has this appearance. It just gives me the overall vibe of a camera that has been randomly thrown together. And what I mean by that is if you take a look, it looks like this lens should be removable. It's not. If you look at the top here, you have a dial for your shutter speed, and it's not. It's just a plastic greebling. It's just nothing. What else? There is the hot shoe. It looks like there's a cover in it. I'm pretty sure that cover doesn't come out. It's pretty clear that they had some other camera and they decided to basically make it work for this use case, which I find very interesting, especially when it's done by the original camera company. Another really good example of this is inside the viewfinder. It's an SLR, and plenty of SLRs have something, I actually don't know the technical term for it, but it's a split ground glass. It's like a little circle in the center of your screen, and it's split, and like a rangefinder almost. When the two split images line up, it means that whatever you're pointed at is in focus. And this can be really handy because sometimes it can be hard to tell, especially with macro, if you're focused precisely. You can be like close and you won't be able to tell until after you take the picture that you were slightly off. So this is very useful, but if you use it, you'll find out that when you focus super, super close, it stops working. I don't know exactly what the reason is or why. It's probably something optics related, but the entire circle goes dark and you just can't, it doesn't work anymore. And I think that's super interesting in a camera that's specifically designed to focus on things really up close, and no, it doesn't work. Which really shows you that this was something that was thrown together through things they had laying around. Or at the very least, it was made in such limited runs that they couldn't justify doing a bunch of custom stuff for it. Another thing that's really cool is you'll see in the front there, that is a ring light. I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture just to, here. Okay, it's powering up, and there is film in this. Ready? Yeah, see? So it has that built-in ring flash, which is supposed to be good for macro when you want like a flatter image. And I'm really excited about using this camera because doing macro on film is so difficult. Doing it on digital is difficult, but when you're not able to preview your picture, specifically when you're using flash, it just makes it really hard to know if you've exposed stuff properly. And this is designed specifically to get well-exposed images of up-close macro things, and it's all automatic. And there's something about that I really appreciate. Yeah, a neat thing. All right, up next is my Polaroid 110B that has been converted to take 4x5 film. So Polaroid nowadays, you'd really think, these days you'd associate them with these very plasticky cameras, these kind of cameras that are pretty dumb, but you just shoot and take a picture. Back in the day, they made some really solid cameras. Obviously, you have stuff like the SX70 and cameras similar to it, but even before then, they would just take a large format lens and stick it onto this specialized body that took their instant film. And this is one of those, and it's very special for a few reasons. But the main thing is the back is big enough to accept pretty close to 4x5. So with some 3D printed parts, you can convert it. And then it has a coupled rangefinder, and the rangefinder and the viewfinder are the same window. A lot of older rangefinders will have a range-finding window so you can tell if you're in focus, and a viewfinding window so you can compose your image. And the Polaroid 110A is similar. That's the setup it has, where this is all in a single viewing window. And yeah, I really like this camera. I think they really thought out the design really well. If you take a look here, you use this dial here to focus. That's how you move your lens back and forth. And then the shutter button is hidden right now because it's folded in still, but it's up here. So you focus and then you like reach your finger over like that to take a picture. I think it's a unique shooting experience. It's almost like a larger format Leica or something. I will say I've had some mixed results through various streaks of bad luck with this camera, unfortunately. It's a weird thing, but there's definitely a phenomenon of having bad luck with a camera. I'm not superstitious or anything, but it can be a little bit distressing, I guess, when you have a camera that you just keep getting all these ruined photos back, and you kind of just want to like take a break from it. I had some development issues with some images I took on this during a trip, and then I had some issues where things just weren't exposing, if you get a camera that you have to troubleshoot and you spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the issue is, and somehow you fix it, but you never exactly iron down what the original problem was, because I don't know what the problem was, I can't address it head on, it might happen again, and then it kind of discourages me from using it. So if you want to adapt your own, I would encourage it. There's a guide online that's very good with all the parts, 3D printable. It's just that I think it's important to troubleshoot it if you have any issues, and like really try to address stuff head on and have the perseverance to see that troubleshooting through. Okay, up next is a real classic. This is a Nikon F4. The Nikon F6 was the last film camera to be still in production until it was canceled in 2016. And this is a few generations earlier than that. And it's this like pro-centric 35mm SLR. And I really love it for a few different reasons. I think really the main reason is it's this really interesting combination of digital automatic exposure and manual buttons and switches, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is if you take a look here, you can see we have all these dials and stuff. What I would like to highlight is this is your film rewind dial. So I have a roll in here, so I can't demonstrate it for you now. But basically, you can manually rewind the film, or you can click a button and a motor will do it for you. And it like spins the thing. And I find that really cool. It's this interesting combination of like ease of use and utilitarian approaches. The idea would be the motor is very loud, so if you're at a press conference, you need to rewind, don't want to use the motor. You have to do it manually. A lot of camera companies would have just either not done the motor or not put in a manual option, right? Because it would be too difficult. But Nikon did both, and I just think that's representative of this camera. When this was released, it wasn't received super well because the autofocus is a little bit slower, and for something that's supposed to be like top of the lineup at the time, it was like underwhelming. But I really like this camera. It's made of plastic, but this is one of the strongest feeling cameras I've ever. I think there's probably some metal pieces inside of it that contribute to how strong it feels, but it feels like a tank. This is something that I could absolutely use as a weapon. If I'm out shooting and somebody tries to attack me, I could throw this and do some serious damage. And there's a lot of cameras actually of mine that this idea applies to. But yeah, you have autofocus, you have matrix metering. It can use all kinds of different lenses. The Nikon F mount is a really interesting lens mount because you could use lenses from, I don't know what, like the late 60s probably, all the way up to the 2010s. Now, if you use a more recent lens, you're going to have some issues with aperture and stuff, but in general, it is possible, and I just find that really fun and cool. And also the idea that you could have this and like a D850 and use the same lenses between them. So you don't have to have all these lenses for just a film camera and just for your digital camera. I find that really cool. The maximum FPS in burst mode on this is 5, I think. And then on the Nikon F5, it gets up to 8 or something like that. But that can be really cool. And that's a full frame 35mm picture, which is larger than 35mm for motion picture movies. It's just a unique thing. And I've had a really good time with this. I think my favorite thing to do with this is to get like a cheaper full frame all around zoom lens. It's a thing that goes from like 35 to 150, that kind of thing, and walk around with it, and you can just get some really great pictures with it. And like, sure, that technically the image quality might not be perfect or whatever. Thinking about the features this thing has again, like something interesting is you have up here this little plastic thing. Now, this is like a light tunnel to illuminate part of the electronic display inside the viewfinder. And something really neat that they did is there's a button that turns a light on that illuminates this just using like an LED or something. And I think that's such an interesting idea too, because that's thought through extremely well. If it was just LED, you would have a limited battery life. And if it was just this little light pipe, then you would struggle when you were shooting in low light situations. And it would be so easy to just pick one or the other and say, that's fine. And they didn't. Then the last thing here is you can take off the viewfinder and then you have a waist level finder, which I think is really cool. It can be fun to just walk around and shoot like this. Although they did make like a hood, I think, that kind of resembles what a TLR or a Hasselblad would have. I like a good folding camera. The thing about folding cameras that can be tricky, and this also applies to box cameras as well, like the Kodak Brownie or something, is that you can have a camera that is like really powerful. You can change your focus, you can change your aperture, you have different shutter speeds, etc. And then other times it's just like a box with a single shutter speed and maybe one other aperture if you're lucky. Or with a folding camera, you'll probably get plenty of apertures, but there's no rangefinder. And because this is medium format typically that we're dealing with, you can actually have issues with getting stuff in focus. Or alternatively, you just have to shoot at like f11, which is not much fun. So I present to you the Kodak 3A. Now, I have multiple cameras that are called the 3A. There's also multiple companies that, would later be merged into Kodak. So it's very easy to get these 3A cameras confused. But essentially, this is one of the 3A cameras. This is a folding one. And I got this at a bookstore, actually. What's really interesting about it is there's a number of different things. First of all, the format of film this took, which I actually have a roll of, I plan to shoot with it at some point, is almost large format. It's postcard film. So it would create this wide aspect ratio picture, great for using in postcards. If you use modern 120 film, with some help of some adapters and stuff, you can get a pretty wide, like almost panoramic picture, which I think is really unique. I hope you'll forgive me, but I fell asleep last night and I'm not even halfway through everything. So I was getting so hot in my head and stuff that I figured I'd just record the rest of this without it. So I hope you can forgive me for that. But anyway, let's just continue where we left off, which I believe was with this guy. So this is the Kodak 3A. It takes postcard film. What really attracted me to it, actually initially when I first got this specific one, was it came with this leatherette case. And if you take a look here, you can see that it has this Yellowstone sticker on it. And from my research, I think this sticker is from the, I want to say like the 1940s or something. But I just thought it looked so beautiful. And also you can see there's some kind of transit sticker on here. It says US Customs on it. I really like this kind of thing because it adds a little bit of history to it. Besides that, though, there's a few other things that are interesting about this. And really the one that stuck out to me the most is the fact there's a rising and fall control on here. So if you take a look on the side here, when you move this little, I don't know what you call it, little thing, it actually makes the lens go up and down. And that's pretty interesting. There's not very many folding cameras that I'm aware of that do this. And I just thought it was a really interesting, kind of unique thing. Another thing that I think is really interesting about this is if you take a look right here, there's a little distance dial, and this is how you can tell if you're in focus or not by using scale focusing. And if you take a look underneath it, there's another one for plates, because if you were going to use a glass plate, it would be offset slightly. On the back here, you'll notice that the film back is interesting. If you take a look, it kind of looks like there's a section of it that can be removed, and that is indeed the case. Let's see, I forget how you do it. I believe it's as simple as coming onto this and pulling. Yeah, there we go. Oh, and you have to press this in too. Okay. And it comes apart like this. And then the idea here is that you could put on a ground glass for focusing, and then you could also put in a holder for glass plates. In doing research on that other camera, I found out that it was actually the first model to ever have a coupled rangefinder built into it. Now that one didn't have it, but I was able to find one for pretty cheaply that does. And unfortunately, it doesn't fully work right now, but you can see down here, this is your rangefinder focusing mechanism. Essentially, if you, oh yeah, we have the little thing popped out here. If you take a look through the side here, when it's working, you'd line up the images so that they're aligned, and that meant you were in focus. And I think that's cool. I think it's suffering from some desilvered mirrors and stuff right now, but I would like to try to fix it at some point, because something about that seems really unique to me. So it looks like the lens is a little bit loose. That can be easily fixed, but still. The thing that's cool about this model as well is if we turn it around, you can see this is an autographic model. So there were a lot of cameras like this, but basically you could open up the back here and write on the film, and then it would come out in the negative. I don't know. I've never gotten to use it myself because they don't make that film anymore. What else? Oh, funny thing about both of these cameras, well, they kind of each have their own issues that still need to be figured out. It's pretty interesting because both of them, the shutters work perfectly fine, which I think is really crazy considering how old they are. Another thing that's interesting, you can see it here, is there's a little mirror viewfinder up here. This is really common for these sort of folding cameras, but what's cool here is it actually folds up. If you take a closer look, you can see that it's squashed. Just for fun, I'll go ahead and fire the shutter and you can hear what it sounds like. One more time. Yeah, not bad, right? A Nettar 515-2, I think is what it is. Zeiss made a lot of little folding cameras similar to this. This one I actually got for free from a family member, I think. And I have a habit of, when I get a camera like this, I look it over and then I set it on the shelf and probably don't really shoot with it. But I was looking through my shelf trying to organize things, and I noticed that this one actually has a really nice lens on it. It's a f4.5, which is fairly fast for a 6x9 medium format. Additionally, this uses 120 film. Most of Kodak's folding cameras, 620 film, which isn't made anymore. And it's a real pain to get some or get a 120 reel to fit in it. So it's one of those things where, in general, maybe you shoot it like once, but it's just something that I tend to not bother to deal with. But here, this guy does do 120 film. It doesn't have one of those little mirror finders on it, which you can see would normally be mounted here. And I thought that was because it must have broke off at some point, but I did some research, and in fact, you could just get these without the little mirror thing on there. So for your viewfinder, you typically use this guy. Let's see, it will come up. There we go. It's a tough thing because you don't want to grab onto it too hard. But yeah, basically you got a little viewfinder here. It's a mix of a sports finder and a more traditional compositing viewfinder, because there are two glass elements in there. It's just not enclosed. So it does a pretty good job of kind of getting your whole frame being an analog to your frame, so you can figure out what your composition is going to look like. It's nice. It has a shutter button right here, which makes it pretty easy to shoot. And this is scale focusing, so you just can look down, move it to the distance you're expecting to shoot at, and I don't know, I like this quite a bit. It's very, it's hard to describe. It's a little bit like a similar sensation to shooting on the Diana or the Holga or something. But with this, you can actually get some really nice in focus, sharp images. Yeah, so I don't know, really neat little camera. I like it quite a bit, and you can pocket it, bring it around with you. Honorable mention is I used to have something called the Moskva 5. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's another USSR camera, but it was very similar to a model that Zeiss made that had a built-in coupled rangefinder. And that was really cool because you have a camera about this size that does 6x9, and you have a rangefinder. It's like ready to go at any moment's notice. You can get those for pretty affordably, and I really liked that camera, but I just found I didn't shoot it very often because it was uncomfortable for me to hold. I have pretty freakish hands, and like this one I can hold pretty easily, but for whatever reason on the Russian camera it was just too much, or too little rather, for my hands, and I just decided it should move on to someone else. Okay, up next, let's do a box camera. Now there's going to be many box cameras, but this one is special because it was sent to me by a certain rabbit named PR Wolf. PR Wolf's a rabbit? I don't know why I just put that together right now. Anyways, they sent this to me. This is a cool little thing. This is a Kodak Brownie, but they have put some masks on it and set it up so that you can take pictures on 35mm film with it. And you can see they did some very good artwork on here. I've only used this like once or twice, I think, but I would love to use it again because I remember the results being pretty good. So that's a cool thing. Something that I really like about these box cameras is they had the viewfinder on either side. So right here you have a viewfinder, and then right here you have a viewfinder, landscape, portrait. Back in the day, they were more concerned about landscape and portrait images. Obviously, with my Graflexes that I love, you often had a rotating back on those. And with the box cameras, they typically had a viewfinder and two spots. And I'm not totally sure what happened with that. Obviously, with 35mm cameras, I guess the idea is you hold it like this, or you hold it like this. And I guess that's probably why they got away from doing it. But speaking of, let's talk about this one next. This one is slightly broken, I believe, but I have to put a test roll through it still to see how broken it is. If I recall correctly, this will rewind to just like halfway through the roll, which is no good. But this is a really unique camera. There's 1,000 million billion point and shoot cameras that you can get. I'm most interested in kind of unique and quirky ones, but this one in particular is pretty unique because it has an f1.9 aperture lens on it. That's the fastest lens ever on a 35mm point and shoot camera, autofocus at least. And I think it's a pretty unique little camera. I love the feel of it. It feels very solid in the hand, and you bring it up to your eye and you get your shot composed. And let me turn it on so you can hear what it sounds like. I don't know, it has a very satisfying sound to it. You can hear it focusing, and then it fires. Really nice. It's a 40mm lens as well, which is really cool because it's basically a 35. You have this wider angle field of view compared to a 50. So it's a little bit more flexible, but you still have the f1.9. So you can get some really cool pictures with this. I understand it's probably not the sharpest lens in the world, but I think you can get some really good results out of it either way. There's no manual aperture setting on this, unfortunately. So One thing you can do though is you can put an ND filter on the front because the light meter is helpfully located beneath the filter threads. You could adjust it that way and be able to stop down a little bit. Another thing about this that's unique, I believe, let me see if I can change this. Jesus Christ. Really hard to move. Damn it. So they made a few different models of these that have different ISO settings. So I think the normal only goes up to 400 or 800 ISO, where I believe this one specifically goes up to 1000. I don't know what that's about. Okay, now it's a test of strength, whatever. Just forget about it for now. Yeah, so if you can find one of these that's working, it's a pretty neat camera for sure. Continuing on with point and shoots, let's talk about this guy. This is a Minolta Freedom 1 quartz date. This is a camera that I found on the floor of an abandoned store. That's a true story. Anyway, it's broken. If you take a quick look here, there's a lens cover that covers the lens, and if I go ahead and try to deploy it, nothing happens. I think it broke at some point, fell off probably. You know what, now that I look at it, I think it's still in there. I think it's just the mechanism screwed up. So maybe that's something that can be fixed at some point. What's interesting about this camera is it's focus free, I believe. Let me see actually. Is this focus free? You know what? It might actually not be. Let's take a quick look here. Okay, we got 2 batteries in here. That's great. Okay, let's replace these batteries real quick. Ooh. What is happening? Okay. Attempting to rewind or something? I really am not totally sure, to be honest with you. I do not know what's happening here. Yeah, it must be this and this. Alright, no clue. Okay, we'll go ahead and remove those batteries. I think it's just trying to load up some film, but boy oh boy is that annoying. Anyway, this camera is focus free, which means it's focused at infinity, and you just point and you click, and the aperture is typically stopped down enough that most things will be in focus theoretically. I'm typically not a big fan of that, but I have put a roll of film through here, and it was very fun to shoot. Something about the shutter was very satisfying, and I also just felt like the flash on it was really powerful. It's a really like push. Gives you some interesting like contrasty pictures. So definitely an interesting little thing. I think it probably needs some TLC, to be honest, judging off of what we just experienced, but yeah. Okay, another one, very similar situation here. This is just a cheaper version. This is the Ricoh One Take Easy Mark II. Wow, what an incredible name. This is your standard focus-free point-and-shoot camera. This is the kind of thing that I like to keep around because you never know when you want to take pictures, and something like this I really wouldn't be afraid to break, because this is something else I think I found on the ground somewhere, honestly. This one's pretty cool because you have quite a few different options that kind of make it unique. So first of all, focus free, like I said, but at the very bottom, there's a focus adjustment. Take a look here. There's this. And when you do this, you can see that the lens rotates slightly. It would appear that this is actually focused close up, more for like portraits and stuff. And if you want to focus to infinity, you just slide this and you take your shot. The other thing that's really interesting about this as well is you have several ISO options, and they actually go up to 1,000, and they're manually selectable, which is cool. Other thing as well that's always nice to see with a camera like this, the last point and shoot we looked at was the same way. You have, I think, just double A's. Yeah, just double A batteries, which is always nice. You don't have to go to the drugstore and get like a CR2 345 battery or something stupid. Also, this has a really nice big viewfinder on it. But yeah, I don't know. Fun little camera, cheap, nothing spectacular per se, but sometimes something's mediocrity is the thing that makes it interesting. That's depressing. Speaking of, let's talk about this guy. This is a pretty interesting camera. This is the Olympus SX20? Oh, IS-10. I was so close. Now, this is a pretty strange little camera. I would probably describe this as a bridge camera. Bridge cameras are these very big, clunky, strange cameras that are meant to bridge the gap between a cheap digital point and shoot and a prosumer DSLR mirrorless camera. Basically, they have these really large zoom lenses on them, so you can get some really big range with these zoom lenses. But the side effect of that is they typically also have like pretty small sensors. In general, the image quality is typically nothing to write home about. There's often weird issues. The exception to that, I would say, is probably like Nikon's P950 or the P1000, which are very notable cameras. When I was working as a camera salesperson for some time at a camera store, there were multiple flat earthers who came in to tell everyone about how the P1000 cameras were a conspiracy, because basically the zoom range on that was insane. I forget what the exact numbers are, but it's something like the full frame equivalent of a 24 millimeter to a 4,000 millimeter or something crazy. You could zoom in to the moon handheld and take a picture of it, and obviously some people had a problem with that. But anyway, those are exception to the mediocrity of the bridge camera. Those are two cameras that I would love to have because you can get some really great pictures out of them, and the zoom range is something to behold. There's no full frame or interchangeable lens equivalent, except maybe some kind of TV broadcast lens. Even that, I don't think there's anything that's the same range, at least as far as I know of. If it was, it would be actually $300,000. You can get a really huge zoom range. You got 4K video. It's like a really interesting combination of different features. I've seen some incredible pictures taken on those. Anyway, this is all to say that this Olympus camera is a film version of that. It is an SLR, so you can actually preview your picture. It has autofocus, and it has a lens that goes from 28 to 110. And I really like this for a few reasons. I think the main thing is this is something that, again, I'm not super worried about breaking it because these go from $20 to $40 typically. And you can get some really solid pictures. The lens on this is sharp, I guess is relative here. But you have all kinds of different features and program modes. You have like a night mode. You have a portrait mode. You have a sports mode. You have the built-in flash, different metering options. You can change the f-stop. All kinds of little interesting things you can do with this. And yeah, I don't know. I think previously I had this in my car just as a backup camera where if there was something I wanted to take a picture of, I could just pull this out. If I turn it on here, you can see it gets pretty big and it has this flash that goes up. I think the 4x zoom is something that is really nice to have in a camera like this. I'll go ahead and fire it off here real quick. We're focusing. No. There you go. Yeah, pretty straightforward, but pretty neat. Okay, up next, let's take a look at this. This is something that I got relatively recently. It's my boyfriend's, actually. The reason we got it is because it has film loaded inside of it. But basically, this is just a Vivitar Easy View. So its marketing thing is it has a huge viewfinder, and indeed it does. There's no focusing necessary. That's a great way to put it. It has a flash built in, and it kind of looks weird. Look at that. It's very plasticky. There appears to be a piece of tape on it for some reason. Why is that on here? Let's see what that's about. Oh, just covers up the rewind. That's interesting. I guess maybe the previous owner felt like they kept triggering the rewind button accidentally, so they taped it over. I'm not totally sure. But this has film in it. I'm very excited to develop this at some point and see what's on there. I've gone through a lot of found film, a lot of film that is really old and hasn't been developed yet. And I don't know, there's a shocking amount of porn. I don't know what is the universal rule of you find film in a camera. Like, it feels much more frequent than you would expect that there's like nudity or something, which is pretty funny. I think in general, though, sometimes you come across some really interesting things. I know I developed a roll that was shot probably in the 70s based on the images that I got back. And it's interesting seeing these pictures, and it's like a time capsule, and you're the first person to see these pictures forever. Quick note on what I said earlier. This was true back in the day, and it's very true now. There's people who go through your film when it gets developed at the lab. So if you have nudity on your pictures, people are going to see it. So if you're comfortable with that's fine, but just be aware of that. I think some people these days think it's all automated, because some of the stuff I've seen is, I don't know. It's a good thing to keep in mind when you're taking pictures. Anyway, up next is a pretty neat little thing. This is a Sony Mavica, and I actually have another one of these as well. Let me take a look. Yeah, so this one, I believe, has been in my family for some time, since it was new, I think. This is a really cool little camera. I plan to make a full video about it on my main camera focused channel, but the gist of it is that it takes floppy disks. And then, I don't know, this one has a zoom lens on it that allows you to take some pretty good zoomed in images. It has some different filters you can apply, which is very interesting. And I love the process of taking a picture with one of these things. You take the picture and it goes in an old CD-ROM drive or something, and then it has a little loading screen. The battery on this is dead right now, so unfortunately I can't show you, but basically I think it's really cool, very fun, and you can, with a floppy disk reader, you can just see these pictures instantly. So it's this interesting dichotomy of feels like developing film or shooting on film because you have these limitations, but it has the convenience of digital. And yeah, something about it I just can't put my finger on, but I find it quite fun. And of course you can also preview your images, you can delete them, all that stuff. The megapixel count on this is not good. I don't know. I think technically there isn't a megapixel count, because if I remember correctly, this stores video frames. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, because you're dealing with interlaced and all this other stuff. I could be wrong about that, but if I recall correctly, that's the case. And I have another one of these. Can be had for so cheaply that I found this other one and I was like, oh, I should just get it. Let's see if this one has power. Yeah, so it has, let's go ahead and take a picture. Okay, yeah, so it has plenty of battery life left on this one. You can take a quick look here at the screen. If I go ahead and take a picture, and then one more time. disc full. So sad. Yeah, I don't know. Something about this. Super cool. Really enjoy it. Actually, some horrible pictures of myself on here. It's pretty impressive. You can take a look at this picture of a plant. Yeah, I don't know. I love these. If you get an opportunity to buy one, you should. Pick up some floppy disks or make one yourself, as I found out you recently can do. And yeah, you should be ready to shoot. Oh, you also need a floppy disk reader too. Okay, up next. This is one of the sadder cameras that I have. This is a Bell & Howell 250. This is a 35mm point and shoot camera from the early 2000s, I believe. And basically you would send off to get this in a catalog, and it would be like, it's free, but you just have to pay shipping and handling. Needless to say, my great grandma purchased this or received this, and I don't think she ever used it, or if she did, she like used it once and put it all back in the wrapping and stuff, which is a very grandma thing to do. I could see that being a possibility. But anyway, what's interesting and unique about this camera is it has a 27mm lens on there. That's pretty wide for a point and shoot. You have stuff like the ultra wide and slim, and more recently this camera that the company Ricoh came out with, which I'll show you in a few minutes here. But especially before that and the ultra wide and slim were re-released, if you wanted like a wider angle point and shoot camera that wasn't like expensive, you basically didn't have any options. So something like this was interesting, and there was definitely a small community of people shooting with these. Something I appreciate about this is, first of all, it's made as cheaply as possible. It's painted. This is not, you can see the paint is coming off of it and stuff. But I do admire some of the engineering in this. For example, let's say you turn the flash on, okay, and you go to take a picture and then you close it out. You can see the flash closes, and that's because there's a mechanism in the cover that literally flicks the switch back when you close it. And I don't know, I feel like that's an interesting little detail. The other thing that is pretty interesting is the winding mechanism is on the bottom of the camera. Same with the rewind, and same with the frame counter. No doubt this was done to save costs, probably. I can't articulate the exact reason, but it makes sense that having all the mechanisms together would probably be like the cheapest way to do stuff. Normally they would have it on the top plate though, so I guess it must just be the way they set up the shutter, and it probably has something to do with the panoramic mechanism. A lot of cameras back in the day that were crappy had this option to shoot panoramic pictures. And if you're someone like me who like is lusting over an X-Pan basically every day, that can seem really appealing. The way it works is that it has these little black blinds that come and cover the frame. That's a little underwhelming, if I'm being honest with you, but I will say you can get some really cool pictures with the panoramic mode. Again, I'm morally opposed for some reason for shooting a picture and then having a bunch of this film just unexposed. It seems wrong to me, but you can do some cool stuff with this, and I would encourage you to try it at least once if it's something that kind of sounds interesting. You get a very grainy image, but you can get some really cool shots. And the thing that appeals to me the most about this is if you look through the viewfinder, panoramic blinds come down on the viewfinder. Here, if I can see, can I show you? Yeah. Okay. So it's not that dusty in real life. You can see full panoramic. Another thing that's cool, again, it's the simple things, you guys, but look. Okay. So see, I close it up, goes dark. Now listen, fucking obviously, right? Obviously, you wouldn't be able to see through the viewfinder when it gets covered up, but these are small details that are... You only figure out the need for something like that when you are out taking pictures and you take a few photos and you realize that you had your lens cover on, or you go to take your camera out of your bag and you realize the battery's dead because you left the flash on. And there's other small stuff too that you wouldn't even notice. The placement of the flash button being right here is actually very purposeful, in my opinion at least. A lot of cameras, if you look at them, you'll see they have a notch or something under the flash to prevent your finger from going on it. It's just something where if there's something there, it might be enough to prevent your finger from sliding over the flash and kind of screwing up your picture. So basically, there's all kinds of different things in here that are done very purposely, but they did it for sense. This thing is not expensive to make, and I really admire that for some reason. It tickles me in an interesting, I don't know, I guess I'll shut up about it. But if you do decide to do the panoramic thing with one of these cheap cameras, what I would recommend, and you got to be careful with this, but I think it's a good idea, is you can basically disconnect the mechanism internally or remove the mechanism entirely, so that when you change it, it actually doesn't move those blinds down. You could leave it so that it moves up like a piece of plastic to maybe into the corner of the image, so you can tell that originally you intended to shoot this panoramically. But the reason I bring that up is because you have that viewfinder that has the panoramic aspect ratio, and then in post you can choose to crop it like that, or you can decide to just go wider, you can extend it, whatever. I think that kind of flexibility is really nice to have. Yeah, so I think that's like an interesting way to approach this, that puts your brain in the mind space of shooting panoramically, but also doesn't restrict you to it. Up next, a classic. This is the AE-1. This one in particular was broken and somebody gave it to me, and I was able to get it working by just fiddling with it. I think it probably wasn't even broken technically. It just needed to be cleaned. But anyway, this one in particular has been butchered a little bit. You'll notice on the back here I have written AE-1 digital. That's because I modified this to work with the I'm Back digital back, which you might have heard about, but basically it's a little film back that allows you to put like a digital sensor into a film camera. I have a full main channel video that I've been working on for months about that, but basically I had to butcher the back of this in order to get that to work for the video. But don't worry, because these backs are easy to replace. They cost like a few dollars, so that's what I plan to do. The AE-1 is the quintessential film photography college class camera. You have some pretty cheap lenses. Some of them are really good. You have plenty of shutter options. Yeah, that's really about it. It's one of those things where it's like, it's a really solid camera. There's not much to say about it, but there's some amazing pictures that have been taken on this. The one thing I will say is that this and the AE-1 program and etc. do require a battery to operate the shutter. And I think in general, especially when you're dealing with SLRs from this era, you can find ones that don't require any batteries, that generally I would prefer, like particularly for something like this where there's no aperture priority mode or like automatic mode or something. I would rather have something that doesn't take batteries, but again, it's a great camera. Related to the I'm Back film back, this is an Olympus OM-10. This is a pretty classic 35mm film camera. I borrowed the I'm Back from a pretty big YouTuber, and they were kind enough to send this to me because this is a camera that it definitely works with the I'm Back film back. It's a pretty nice camera, and I will say Olympus, back in the day especially, they had some really interesting cameras, particularly in terms of metering. Some of their later models, some of their 35mm cameras had some really good metering. It had some kind of crazy technology, kind of similar to matrix metering, I think. But if I remember correctly, it was something where it was actively metering throughout the shot. I think you're going to have to, don't quote me on this, but if I recall correctly, if the lighting changed during the shot, it would say, okay, we're closing the shutter. And that's a really cool feature. There's also their famous 90mm f2.5 lens on there. That's a really great little macro lens. I've shot with it a few times and I think it's very beautiful. I quite like it. Next, let's go to Nikon. This is a Nikon N65. This is one of Nikon's 35mm cameras that there's this interesting era of the early 2000s and the 90s with Canon and Nikon where you have these electronic cameras with a lot of pro features that typically can be had for very little money. I don't know why those aren't more sought after. I think it's because they're so common and they do tend to break because obviously electronics doesn't age well over time generally. However, I'm a fan of these because you get some really interesting features like different autofocus settings, backlight compensation, really good metering, burst modes that tend to be really fast, especially for the price you're paying. And oftentimes you can use them with like more modern lenses. I'm thinking about obviously Nikon and the F mount and then Canon with the EF mount. Definitely something worth playing with if you can get a good deal on one of those. This guy in particular works fine, but it does have some rubber reversion on it, which is where rubber goes sticky over time. It's really too bad, but I do think I'll be able to temporarily cure it enough to use it. And yeah, I don't think there's much else to say about this guy other than, one thing I will say is a lot of cameras from this era used a rubber, like, vibration absorbing pad, I think it's called. Basically, the shutter which comes down and it used to, in like older film cameras, it would probably hit like a piece of foam, maybe even some fabric of some kind. Where here, it hits like this kind of rubber piece. And the problem with that is over time, that rubber has begun to become sticky as well. And it can cause the shutter blades to get like this rubber or like oily residue on them. So if you ever open up a camera from this era and you look at the shutter, you might see, this one doesn't have it, but you could see some kind of like shininess on some of the blades. And if you ever see that, it's typically a bad sign. In general, I'm sure it's technically possible to use some kind of solvent to remove the stickiness from the shutter temporarily, but like in general, it's typically not worth it. Although if you want to try to fix it, you definitely should, because those don't cost that much money and it's a good way to learn that skill, which is generally in short supply these days. So this is a Nikon D80. This is another camera that I got for free. I'm showing you this huge collection of cameras. The funniest thing is people see all these cameras and they say, wow, like this is all really expensive. It's not. 95% of these cameras are basically worthless. I just have one or two cameras that are very expensive. Anyway, this is the D80. This is a DSLR camera from Nikon. Its crop sensor, I think it's probably, I don't know, it's not very many megapixels, probably like between 8 and 12. I'm leaning towards 12, if I recall correctly. There's no option to do video on this, I think. Just not at all. You can do some good autofocus and stuff on this. You have mirror lockup and stuff. There's all kinds of different like settings you can do. It's a perfectly adequate camera. One thing I find a little bit frustrating about this is I have this lens from my Nikon F4 on here, and the light metering is a little bit wonky on this. If you have a lens that doesn't communicate with the lens digitally, it just won't like light meter properly, which is stupid. But anyway, you can still use it. You can get yourself a picture and then it will come up on the back screen here. I don't know, nothing phenomenal or anything, but I have a real soft spot for DSLRs. I would like to get one of the later Nikon ones just because the feel is really nice. This idea of the grass is always greener. People who were on DSLRs for such a long time were like, okay, this mirrorless camera is great because I can be taking pictures in the dark and the screen is bright, where on a DSLR, you're looking directly through the lens projected onto a mirror. It's very dark. It's hard to see if you have your frame composed correctly. And there's like other little things like this where it's, wow, this is great. But I find that the same thing applies if you're like me and you like basically grew up using mirrorless cameras. You look at something like this and you're like, wow, I can actually see the image that I'm composing. I can see the real life image, and I don't get to see the exposure. It's one of these things where whatever you're not used to, you find interesting and fascinating. And that's something that I think is appealing about DSLRs, especially these days. Okay, next is an odd one. This is a little toy camera. This is a Chenzhou TLR camera. It's cute. It says on the front of it, inspiration at your fingertips. Capture the essence of every moment. It's a fun little toy camera that, wow, you see that? Has a little waist level viewfinder, which off the bat immediately makes it cool. I forget how you turn it on. Let's take a quick look here. I think it's one of these front buttons. Nothing. Okay, that's fine. What about this side button? No. These buttons. You know what? The battery must be dead on this, which is too bad. But anyway, this is a cute little digital camera. It takes square images. You point, you shoot at things. It doesn't really autofocus. I think it's fixed focus. The image quality is not very good, but for this kind of thing, you're not necessarily buying it for image quality. It's the shooting experience. It's getting like pictures of friends and stuff. The thing that I think is really cool is on the side here, they put in a little crank, which I have to say is pretty neat. The attention to detail there is pretty cool. And if you hear this, oops, it's an actual cranking, switchy thing. It's an electronic thing. So it can tell when you're winding this. There's a mode where you like wind it like this and it takes video, which I think is super cute. The problem with that is this basically overwhelms the audio that it records. And then also when you wind it like this, you'll notice that the camera tends to shake back and forth pretty aggressively, and that definitely comes out in the footage. But it's a cute idea. I would really love to see, I don't know, a company like a big camera company try to do a bit of an attempt at this. Maybe it seems like something Fuji would do, probably, where they just have a TLR style camera or a waist level viewfinder style camera that potentially with some of their technology, maybe they'd be able to get it like a gimmick like this, not negatively affecting the images or the video in this case. Although knowing Fuji, I think they would probably not do that and cheap out on it, which I don't know, don't get me started on. Anyway, okay, next thing. This is a Super 8 camera, I believe. Let me take a quick look here. Super 8. Oh, this is not the normal cartridges. This uses reels. All you need to know is that this takes like an 8mm film, basically. And it has a little zoom on there. You have an animation lever. That is interesting. So I guess for that is taking individual frames. And this one was powered by a crank. You'd wind it up. And then also up here, we have this selenium cell. So this is how you would meter it. Both the crank and the cell have unfortunately died. The crank is repairable. The selenium cell is, I guess it's probably technically repairable, but good luck finding one of those cells that still works, unfortunately. But yeah, it has a zoom lens on there, which I really like. You have a viewfinder, which I think is through the lens. Let me take a look. Yeah, so you have a viewfinder that I believe is probably using a semi-transparent mirror in order to view the lens, if it's focused or not, and then also cast it onto the film, which is pretty cool. This is another one of those things where it's been in the family for a while, so even though it doesn't work, I don't plan to get rid of it or anything just because it has some sentimental value. You'll notice the ISO options on here are pretty limited. We have 10, 16, 25, and 40. I'm gonna go load up some 40 ISO film and then go shoot some nighttime street photography. Oh, this next one is definitely the weirdest camera I have. It's a handmade, presumably prototype of some kind. You can take a look at it here. This thing is crazy. So basically the deal with this is like one of those Yashicas, or Ricoh has a camera that does this. It has several different lenses and it takes pictures, several pictures all at the same time. And the idea is that you can take this image and turn it into a lenticular print, or you could make it into an animated GIF, basically. I plan on making a full channel video about it, but basically this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. It takes 35mm film, it has 8 lenses, it has a custom built shutter assembly, which is just phenomenal. It's got all kinds of different knobs and switches and stuff on it. What they do is pretty limited. The switches on the front don't actually function. This up here is just so you can keep track of the shot you're on. It's fully manual. There is an aperture switching knob back here, and also one that adjusts your focus as well, which is very cool for a camera like this. It's pretty unusual for this sort of camera to have the ability to focus or change your aperture, so that's really cool. You have different shutter speeds, and you have a nice big shutter button. And yeah, I don't know, really crazy camera. I'd love to figure out who made it and who designed it and stuff, but at least for now, it's a total mystery. Yeah, crazy. Okay, so continuing on with this theme of big cameras, this is my 4x5 Auto Graflex. This is the first Graflex SLR I ever got, and it's really cool. So Graflex SLRs are one of my favorite cameras. Basically, they're SLRs, but they take large format film, so there's a really high resolution to the images you get off of it, higher than every digital camera, basically. Really high resolution. I can go ahead and open this up here. You look through this in order to compose your image. You focus with this, and there's also a really unique shutter mechanism on these Graflexes. It uses curtains, so if we make sure we're in a good position here, you can see that this is the shutter curtain, and there's different sizes of openings, and then you can also control the tension on the curtain so that affects the speed. So basically you can get all kinds of different shutter speeds by messing with the different combinations of like openings in the curtain and the speed that the curtain is being moved. It's very unique, very cool. The honorable mention here would be the home portrait, which is like my prized camera. I made a video about this a while ago on my main channel, but basically it's one of these, but it's a 5x7 inch film instead of 4x5, and that also has a rotating back. This one does not. Many of the 4x5 models do, but this one is just like an early one. But yeah, like I said, it's off being repaired right now, so I haven't had it for quite some time, but I'm very excited to get it back and use it. And
of course, there's also this company called SmartFlex that's out there right now doing their own version of these Graflex SLRs. They have an 8x10 version, which recently came out, I think at least, and I will get one of those if it's the last thing I do. It's so amazing. It's so cool. I would kill to have one. This is all to say that I love these SLRs. I think they're so cool. It's really neat to be able to take such a high resolution, nice blurry background picture handheld. It's super unique and interesting. I'm gonna continue this large camera trend and try to get it over with, because there's a lot of big ones. Let's look at the Gowland Flex. Now this is a camera I also did a main channel video on. You can see right now it's in pieces because I'm working on repairing it. But this is a TLR like the Lubitel, only it takes 4x5 film, which is really cool. These were made by a photographer named Peter Gowland, hence the name. And I was lucky enough to get one of these for a very good price of, I don't know, it was ridiculous, at like $200 or something, but it was incredibly beat up, and I've been working on repairing it, and luckily for me, it's mostly fine. So really cool. Love this thing. Can't wait to get it working. Super cool little camera, and I'm really excited to take some portraits and stuff with it. Alright, now this guy. This is a big camera. This is a Devon tricolor camera. This is another thing I'm working on repairing. It's so big that I can't even fit it in the frame of this video, which is pretty funny. It's also casting a large shadow on me. Basically, if you take a look at this, it's a monstrosity. It's a huge camera. You'll notice that it has a spot to put the lens, but it has 3 other places where you put film on it. Hence the name tricolor camera. This was designed to take color pictures with black and white film. You might have seen this thing that people do occasionally called tricolor photography. It's where you take 3 separate pictures using 3 different color filters, and you combine them together, and you're able to make a color image out of these. Each color filter basically acts as a color channel, and basically they came up with this idea before color photography was really a thing. And this is one of those cameras. So the idea is that there's 2 two-way mirrors inside of this, and part of the light is reflected every which way. And the reason why I got this is, first of all, it was found on eBay. It was a good deal, so I said, what the heck? But the other thing is that color film is in danger of going away. There's only really one big company who makes it, Kodak. In the last couple of years, there's a few companies that have popped up that kind of do make their own version of some color films, but they're very limited, and none of them are as advanced as Kodak, unfortunately, at least yet. I don't know, this is a problem if you want to shoot this stuff. So this is all to say that black and white film is something that has been around forever. It is something you can make at home. There's many different manufacturers. There's a bunch of different methods to do it. I truly believe it's around here it's going to stay around for quite some time. So if black and white film is the only thing you can get, and you have one of these, you can still take some incredible pictures with it. Now, the struggle right now is the semi-transparent mirrors that go into these are very delicate, and they break down over time. I haven't seen a single example of one of these that has the mirrors intact. This one, likewise, does not. I also believe that the mirrors are a very thin film. It's not even like a mirror. It's like a tiny, like, plastic wrap, hair thin as a human hair surface that reflects the light and stuff. So I've managed to find a few manufacturers that do make like a film that's similar to this, and I plan on attempting to repair this and get a film added in here that hopefully would do what we need it to do. And ideally it would be made of something a little bit more durable than just like a thin sheet, but we'll have to see. It's possible that the thin sheet might be the only option. The other concern here too is getting the focal points correct. The mirror has to be positioned perfectly in order for every plane of film to be in focus. So that can be a struggle for sure. But yeah, I don't know. This is really cool. This is a 5x7 version. There's a lot of work I still have to do on it, but I'm excited to do that eventually. All right. Remember when I was talking about how Kodak and its subsidiaries and other companies as well made a lot of cameras with the model name 3A? Well, this is a Fulmer and Schwing, otherwise known as Graflex 3A. This is a postcard format film SLR. So it's like the 4x5 or the 5x7 Graflexes that I told you about earlier, but it takes this postcard film and it has a similar viewfinder that is very cool. You can see here that this one's in pretty rough shape, but basically you can compose your image, which is really neat. You have a lens thing here. Let me pop it out real quick for you so you can see. Okay, you can see there's no lens in here right now, but basically this comes out. It's very similar to the folding camera we looked at actually. Now, this is really cool, really unique. The reason why I'm so intrigued by it is that you can convert it to use 120 film, and then suddenly you have a panoramic aspect ratio SLR. Cameras like the GX617 from Fuji have a panoramic aspect ratio, and this would basically do that only with an SLR, where on that you are scale focusing through like a viewfinder basically. And you can also put all kinds of different lenses on there because it doesn't require like a leaf shutter or some kind of shutter to be built into the lens, because it uses the curtain that the Graflexes use. It also, this is one of my favorite little parts, is it has these little openings on either end that you can put your rolls of film in, which I think is really cute, very funny. So basically the thing with this, and the reason why this has taken me a really long time to convert to use with 120 film, is that this one didn't have an autographic back. So I showed you earlier those autographic backs for scribbling on the film. If you have one of those, you can use 120 film pretty easily. You can see the exposure counter of the backing paper through that autographic back opening, where this guy didn't have an autographic back. You can get them with autographic backs. This one didn't have it. So a lot of people will drill a hole or something. I didn't really want to do that. There's also concerns with the original film that this would have taken is a little bit thicker than 120 film. Because of that, you have to basically add something to the pressure plate in here in order to make sure the film is pressed up properly. It's a huge pain, but basically I have been designing a 3D printed back that goes on here. You can see this one is a prototype and I have a lot of corrections, so I just wrote the corrections right on it, but hopefully sometime soon I will have that and you'll be able to remove the original back, put this on here without being destructive, and convert it to 120 film. In the process of doing that, I did find a few autographic ones that came up online, like this one that was really cheap, so I just decided to get it. And I got it with the intention of it doesn't work, so I'm gonna take the autographic back off of it and use it on mine. But this one actually does work, and it works pretty well. There's just a few problems with it that basically it needs to be cleaned up, essentially. Also, the leatherette is in a sad state of affairs, same with the other one. So I don't really know. I think I'm probably going to try to fix this up as well and just use it. But this is interesting because it has some little things that have been done to it. So for starters, and this is true with actually the other one, you'll notice I had to press some buttons in order to get the front part to open up and these side storage spaces, right? A lot of the Fulmer, Schwing, Graflex cameras have these kind of, I want to call them like living hinges, but basically they're like a little button that is under the leatherette and you have to click it in order to open stuff up. And I think that's really cool. It's something that I really like, but it does mean that part of the leatherette wears out very quickly. But in terms of custom modifications on this camera, if you take a look at the side here, you'll notice this is a flash sync thing. I actually don't know exactly if it's something you plug into or if you would put a flash bulb or like a flash mechanism directly onto it. I'm not totally sure. The way that this works is really cool in my opinion. You can see that it's broken, but basically there was a little piece of like acrylic that was attached back here. And when the shutter was fired, one of these switches like moves back for a brief second. And this would make contact with it and it would fire the shutter. And I just think that's super creative, really cool. The other thing that's crazy, I forget if it's still in here or not. No, I think I removed it, but there was just a battery soldered in here. So somebody just took these wires and soldered it to a battery, which you can't really do. I guess you can, but it's not safe. And granted, it was a battery from like the 1950s or something. So it was probably full of mercury, lead, and asbestos anyway. But I don't know. I love that. I love when there's a camera that has been modified by the previous owner. I find it very interesting. And you think about, what is this camera seen? And what were they intending to do with it? And that kind of stuff. I don't really need two, so I'm probably going to get rid of one eventually. But up next, let's do this guy. Now, this is pretty interesting. This is a detective camera. This is a 4x5 detective box camera. Now, the detective comes from the fact that the police used to use stuff like this for photographing crime scenes and stuff. A detective camera is typically either going to refer to a box camera like this or an ultra wide angle camera. I know Kodak made one specifically in the early 1900s, I think. That was extremely wide angle. And the idea is you would set it down in a crime scene and take a picture and it would just get everything in the room. This guy is pretty interesting. Extremely basic operation here. I have other box cameras, which I'll show you, that have many more options. I think this doesn't even have the option to change aperture. You have two viewfinders, and one thing that is cool though is you have a compartment back here. And basically, this holds your film holder. So you have a film holder, which you'd slot in, and you could potentially even hold several film holders back here to stock up before you're shooting. The pictures I've taken with this haven't been amazing, but with old box cameras, you can get some good pictures despite the fact you can't focus, despite the fact the controls are very minimal and all this other stuff. You can often get some really interesting photos. All right, so this is a little Bolex camera. This is another one that I got for free. It's been taken apart slightly because it needed some work done to it, but it's a little 8mm camera. Very simple. There's no through the lens finding on this. It's hand wound. Something that is cool about this is the frames per second ranges from 8 to 64, which is very unique given that it's like hand wound. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily unique, but I think it's very interesting. The reason is that like 12, 16 frames per second is a standard for a motion picture film of this size, especially when it was being used by consumers who have a limited budget. So the option to have 64 frames per second, which is pretty high speed, is pretty unique. And also the fact it's not electronically driven is interesting. Yeah, I haven't had an opportunity to shoot with this yet, but I would love to at some point. And I would love to get one of the Bolex 16 millimeters too, because that's a serious camera right there. Speaking of motion picture cameras, up next is what is this? Oh yeah, this is the Argus. What's it called? This is an Argus Showmaster 822. This is a Super 8 camera. There's actually some film in here right now. I really like this camera. It's pretty neat. There's a few interesting features. The zoom lens on this is motor driven, so you can zoom in and out while you're shooting, and it's very smooth. There's also like a high speed option where it does like more frames per second if you want to do like a slow motion effect. I like how it folds up and stuff. I haven't developed any film from it yet, but there is film in here, and I plan to get it developed and see what we're dealing with. Up next is that wide angle Kodak point and shoot I was telling you about earlier. This is the Ricoh Kodak Snapic A1. A really neat little camera here. This is cool because it has a focus adjustment. You can do either like portrait or infinity. It's 25 millimeters, super thin. Take a look here, very small, very compact. My favorite part about it is it has a little screen on it, a little OLED screen that tells you your flash mode and your other stuff. I think these are being sold for like around $100 or something, which is a steal for something that's brand new. It's motor driven. I've been very pleased with it so far. I'm still working on getting all the pictures back from it and stuff, but just for sakes of laughs and giggles here, I'll take a picture of you. Yeah, really simple, pretty nice, and surprisingly high quality. Now, if I can go off on a ramble here, which I will, this is not actually made by Kodak, at least as far as I understand. Ricoh is this like licensee of Kodak. Kodak, Polaroid, a lot of these, Vivitar even, a lot of these kind of older companies will just license their name out to anyone who's willing to pay for it. And this is problematic in many ways because you can have these companies' goodwill is used up in the public's mind because they're like, oh, it's Kodak, they make good stuff. And then you buy it and it's not good. But for some reason, this company, Ricoh, has been, and again, I don't know if they are owned by Kodak in some way because they do seem to be very well put together. I really don't understand it. But basically, this company, Ricoh, licenses Kodak's name and they put it on this. In the past, Ricoh has been affiliated with Kodak, but has been very like quiet about the fact that they're affiliated with Kodak. But finally with this, Kodak's name is on there. So yeah, I don't know, kind of interesting. I hope there's more stuff like this released. This one is very cool. This is something I'm quite proud of. This is the Agfa Optima 1535. Now, this is a lineup of different cameras, this Optima series. There's like a 1510, or maybe it's a 1035 or something. The number is important here. But basically, what's cool about this guy is that it is a rangefinder style camera. So normally a camera like this would be scale focus and you'd look through the viewfinder and you don't have a window to confirm that you're in focus. This one does, and it's a very large window at that. It's aperture priority, I think, which is really cool. The thing about these, there's a few things. The first thing, these go for incredible amounts of money. really expensive, like $600 to $800 sometimes. I think that's all because of a Grainy Days video that came out years ago about this. Maybe it's just because they're kind of rarer. But yeah, I don't know. It's ridiculous. This is not worth that much money. I did not pay this much money. I paid around $200 for this, which was a great deal. And it was untested, and I got it, and it worked. Phenomenal. Great. Other stuff about this. The flash on the top is some kind of proprietary thing. You got to get a special flash. We love that. The tripod mount is on the side of the camera. Very strange. Other thing that I really like is the way the rewind mechanism on this works. You wind normally, and then when you want to rewind, you click a button and you just wind as if you're advancing the film, and it actually rewinds it. And I think that's super cool. The focusing mechanism is a little bit weird. When you move it, I don't want to say it's slippery, but it's hard to get it really articulated to the focal point that you want. It's kind of can get close, but it's just hard to nail it. I don't really know what that's about. The design on this is beautiful. I think it's so pretty. I love how it looks. So yeah, expect a full video on that at some point. Very interesting camera. Okay. We're going to start to speed through these because I've been recording this for hours and hours and it's getting tiring. This right here is a Ricoh 35 EFS. This is a little point and shoot style camera. You have scale focusing and everything else is automatic. Has a flash that's built in, nice, and it's a pretty simple little camera. I do the build quality. It feels very solid. This one's kind of sad again. Probably needs to be repaired or cleaned up at the very least. But yeah, quite a nice little camera. There's this white window here. Oftentimes you'll see like a secondary window when it's a rangefinder style camera. Here, I think it's probably being used as something to do with the light meter, but it's strange because there's another light meter sensor like right there. So honestly, who knows what that's all about? Maybe it doesn't even do anything. Cute little camera. I have a soft spot for this kind of era of like 80s point and shoot because it's one of the first point and shoots I ever used. Speaking of Yashica, this is a Yashica Lynx 1000. It is a rangefinder camera, no interchangeable lens. You have a built-in selenium light meter. Of course, that doesn't function anymore, but really nice little camera. These have pretty good lenses and they tend to be available for relatively low prices. The unfortunate thing with this one is its slower shutter speeds are sticky, so you have to go for a faster shutter speed. Really, it's just in need of a good old CLA, but a camera like this is typically not worth the amount of money a CLA would take. So it's one of those things where if you're anything like me, you're probably just going to use it as is. This is a camera special to me for its sentimental value. This is a Vivitar 220 SL. This is a fully mechanical 35mm SLR. Bare bones. Extremely basic. So, this is special to me because it's the first 35mm SLR I ever owned. I paid way too much money for it, but it's a workhorse in some ways. It just works. The light meter is finicky because they don't make the batteries for it anymore, so you kind of have to fuss around with it. But it takes M42 mount lenses, which are really easy to come by. It's kind of almost a universal SLR mount, which I really like. Yeah, that's really all there is to say about this guy. And in a similar vein, this is a Pentax Spotmatic. This is another quintessential camera similar to the Canon AE-1. Excuse me. This guy in particular is broken, I think. So I've had it laying around as like a parts camera. I will probably send this off to someone who can use it because I do not have another Spotmatic to do anything with the parts with. We will do a box camera speed round, my favorite. So this right here is a Kodak Premo. It's a little folding camera. This is the folding camera I was talking about earlier that took plates. Oh, it says inside it's a Premo.
think it's from the early 1900s, like 1901 type situation. Let's see. Sometimes it even says on there. Yeah, I don't really see anything. It's very simple, but a cute camera. I've worked on 3D printing a roll film pack for it because I think that would be funny. Up next, this is one of Kodak's folding cameras. This is the, what is this? Is this like a Kodak Special or something? I honestly don't know what this is. A lot of the Kodak ones are just like, they're named so similar. It's hard to know. This might be a Kodak 620 because it takes 620 film. It's a pretty cool little camera. I don't know. It's one of those things where I like it quite a bit, but there's not too much to say about it. Up next, we have another Kodak folding camera. This one is in pretty rough shape. It is a similar situation to the Zeiss I showed off earlier. Ooh, this one's in really rough shape. 6x9. I think this is probably still 620 film, but I'd have to look and see. I think it works fine, which is remarkable given its age. Let's see. Does it fire? Yeah, it does. That's crazy. This thing is ancient. It's actually really funny because I say that, but we've looked at multiple cameras today that are in much better condition that have been around for significantly longer. So I guess it's all variable. And I forget how you close this. How do you close it? Do you press down here? No. I know you can close it because I've clearly done it before. Great. Weird. Okay. It's staying open for now. Okay. This next one is pretty cool. This is a Kodak Monitor 620, which I feel like this is not even my only one. This is very similar to the other folding cameras we've shown so far. It's takes 620 film, but this one's a little bit more advanced. It's unique. Let me see if we can open this up a little bit here. Okay. Ugh. Yeah. So the reason this one's a little bit more unique than the others is that this one has a film counter. It has a kind of an interesting viewfinder. I think that's probably what the monitor comes from. There's even parallax correction on this viewfinder, which is pretty unique for something like this. And this has a very similar design language to the Kodak Medalist, which is renowned for its really sharp lens. This one has a very similar design language that I really like. I think it does take 620 film, which is a shame because, again, it's hard to shoot with that. I still need to shoot with it. We go ahead and open up the back here. I think we can get a better look at everything. Yeah, 620 film. Nice big film gate. Pretty cool. I would definitely like to shoot with this. But the thing that's really interesting about this is when I got it, it came with a box, and it didn't just come with the box though. In the box, on the very bottom of the box, was hidden underneath a piece of paper, that piece of lining on the bottom of the box, was a bunch of developed pictures. So you can see this here. It says B&H album prints. And wouldn't you know it, inside here are a bunch of pictures. And I just think this is so cool because not only do we have the pictures, we also have the camera itself. So you can see here, there's a guy standing in front of some bulls or oxen. These are some really great photos. Take a look here, this gentleman, very stylish. The thing that makes me laugh about this is these guys look like just some dudes from Oklahoma today. They really, it doesn't look too different. There's a few interesting photos in here that I really wonder what was going on. And this one's pretty cool. You can see it's this nice landscape shot. Yeah, I don't know. I like seeing stuff like that. There's also additional stuff in here. What else was there in here? Ooh, all kinds of different stuff. What do we got? Okay, so there's some rolls from the film that was used, which is pretty funny. There's something called a snapshot Kodak guide, which is like a little handheld exposure calculator. It's basically like a little paper chart that you can use. This one is the instruction manual. And then there's one more thing, which if I recall, is service papers. Let's take a look here. Yeah. So in the bottom of this, I found some service papers. It's dated 13th of April, 1954. Headquarters and Headquarters Battery, the 17th Field Artillery Group in Fort Still, Oklahoma. Basically, these are promotional papers. It says the following temporary promotions of the enlisted men is announced, and it has a few names. People from becoming corporals, people becoming private first class. And there's one of these people is circled, so I feel like that might tell us who one of the people in images is, which is really cool. And it's rare that you get this kind of information just handed to you. I've been really meaning to do some research and see if maybe I could track down the ancestors of these people in the images, because I think it's kind of a unique opportunity, and it's possible they haven't seen these images before. And then these foil wrappers are really cool. Now I know these are from rolls of 620 film, is because I've owned some of it before, like from this era. And I've actually successfully shot with some of it as well. More film can last for quite some time. Let's fold that all back up. Pretty cool. Okay. So next we're going to do the box camera extravaganza. I told you I have a lot of box cameras, and I was not lying. This guy, this is a 6x9 box camera, super simple. I don't even think this one is labeled with a brand. Very simple. You do have aperture controls. You have an option to do a bulb mode exposure. The way the shutters work on these are hilarious. If you open one up, you can see it. And most of the time when you open up a camera and you look inside of it, it's like looking, I imagine what like a surgeon sees when they open up like a person. It's like you see all these things, maybe you have some understanding of what they do, but it's like kind of a mystery how all this stuff got there. You know what I mean? How all this stuff came to be, where with this, you open it up and it's extremely clear. It's like a single piece of wire that's like around this pivot point, and you click a button and it like moves the thing in front of the lens. It's very simple, but pretty cool. Oh, you know what? This does have a name on it. It says Kodak Brownie. So there you go. This is a real Brownie. On the bottom, EW and E something, EB, have been etched into the bottom of the camera. Cool. Wonder who owned it. I wondered why it appears they tried to cover it up at some point as well. So there's a whole story there. When there's not somebody's name drawn into a camera, there's typically someone's social security number. Back in the day, they used to do that. Baffling to me. Okay, up next is this guy. This is an Enesco, I believe. Let's see. Oh, no, yeah, this is the Agfa Enesco, a Brownie competitor. Only thing really noteworthy about this is, first of all, it has these kind of metal edges, and it also has a back that opens up like that, where a lot of the other ones, you pull the front off and you can change the film out that way. After that, we have one of these guys. This is another Kodak Brownie. This is one that I actually attempted to restore in a video on my main channel many years ago. It's one of the first film cameras I used within memory. PR Wolf was just talking about how he shoots on film all the time, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Why would somebody do that? That's like crazy. Film's expensive. It's like hard to use. So I bought this camera. I tried to fix it. I tried to use it, and the images totally failed. But there was something about it that made me say, wow, there might be something to this. And needless to say, I didn't like it very much, and I never touched a film camera ever again. Up next is this guy. This is another miscellaneous box camera. This one uses a slightly larger type of film. Yeah, that's it. All these box cameras that I'm showing are probably from like 1915 to maybe like 1930. Very old. But you'll notice that a lot of them don't look that old. They don't really look that worn down, which is pretty interesting, I think. Now this guy, this is the Q-Pi. What a name, right? This is interesting because this would have taken one of those larger rolls of film, I think pretty similar to the postcard film that the Kodak 3As and the Graflex 3A took. This one is called the Q-Pi 3A. I think the 3A comes from the film size. I don't think it's a coincidence after all these cameras, but still, it's incredibly hard to keep track of. Anyway, this is pretty cool because, again, panoramic pictures if you're using 120 film, but also it has a barrel in the front that controls the aperture, which is unique. You don't see that super often. Yeah, just a little barrel turret for the aperture. Okay, and now the last Brownie, or that was the last Brownie box camera for now, but what I do have is this is a Kodak Dual Flex Mark III. This is one of these pseudo TLRs. This one actually does allow you to change the focal distance, so you can focus on something far away or close if you wanted to. The only problem is that the viewfinder is fixed. So the viewfinder, to save on costs, presumably, they only made the viewfinder like something you can preview your composition with. You can't actually do anything else. No focusing or anything. This takes 620 film, I think, has plugins for a flash on the side, and that's about it. I do the pictures that come out of these, but I just find that in terms of like a Holga or a Diana or something, this lo-fi image, but I just find the 620 film is too much of a pain to deal with. You either have to be like shooting on 620 film and have to buy all these re-spooled rolls, or you have to re-spool it yourself, and it's just too difficult for me. Shooting on film is hard enough as is. This guy, this is an honorable mention because it doesn't really work, but I got it for free, so I thought I'd show it off. This is a speed graphic. This is I think a 3x4 inch speed graphic, or maybe a 2x3. No, this is a 3x4. Oh, is it? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think this is a 2x3. So this is like a medium format speed graphic. It's interesting, very small size. This is the kind of thing that like Ouija would have used back in the day. You can take a look inside. It's actually in fairly good condition, at least compared to the outside. It actually is crazy. It looks like the curtain inside. Speed graphics, they're not SLRs, but they still have that similar Graflex curtain. And this one looks like it's actually in pretty good shape. It probably needs to be like lubricated and stuff, but it looks like most of the issues are kind of appearance based, which is cool. Pretty unique that a camera this rough could potentially still work. Okay, so we're starting to come to the end here, which is great because I am extremely tired. Let's do a quick digression into 3D printed cameras. I have quite a few. Let's start with this. This is a 3D printed panoramic camera. It's 6x17. You can see on the front here we have a lens and this little focus helicoid. This lens is a 90mm, I think. Oh, no, it's a 75mm f8. I brought this to Joshua Tree one time and successfully got some pretty interesting photos. I think this is a pretty cool little thing, especially because it's 3D printed and the files are free. But I will say there's a project that's available right now called the Fat Shot X. Funny name, but it's a 6x17 style 3D printed camera, and it looks like masterful. And I'm working on printing that right now just because it's probably a little bit easier to use. But this guy is pretty cool, and it does work. It's a little bit fiddly, especially if you want to change your aperture, because this is like a DIY thing. It's hard to like reach your controls and stuff. Yeah, but I don't know, for a little DIY project, it's neat. Okay. Up next is one of like my 25 prototype MP4.5s. This is a camera that I designed. You can see it doesn't have a back or a lens on it right now, but it's a sort of modular camera designed around Mamiya press lenses. These are medium format lenses, but this takes 4x5 film. So it's this interesting thing of using these medium format lenses that many people already have. You can breathe new life into these lenses by using them on 4x5 film to some pretty good results. I have some images I took in college hanging up in front of me that used one of these cameras and a press lens. I have been planning on finishing this project for forever now. It's been like years that I've been working on it. I just need to get stuff finished up, and then I will release it so people can make it if they want. Work in progress, but okay. So up next are some 4 parts cameras, and sticking with the 3D printed theme, this is one of Chroma cameras. Chroma camera. They do some really interesting 3D printed cameras and pretty interesting 3D printed cameras and like lenses and stuff. It's really unfortunate, but I did a video about this on my main channel, but basically this is a 35mm panoramic camera, and it's incredible that this is 3D printed, but unfortunately I just kept having issues. I think I got 2 or 3 of these. Yeah, 3. And every time there was some kind of problem with the film advance mechanism. Just wouldn't do what it's supposed to, which is really sad. So I ended up getting a refunded from Steve, which was very kind of him. And it's really too bad. I have hung on to these. I don't really expect to do anything with them, but yeah, I don't know. The good news is that, first of all, Chroma cameras does do some really good stuff. So the video I made about it was very negative, and it really broke my heart to do that because Steve's obviously a very talented guy and stuff. But the good news is that there's a Kickstarter campaign right now out called the Beer Pan, and it's like this SLR style panoramic camera. It looks amazing. I'm normally against Kickstarters for obvious reasons, but this is just such it's the perfect answer. It answered my prayers to like an alternative to the X-Pan, something that's like repairable because the parts are going to be open source eventually. A lot of metal parts, and it's also an SLR instead of a rangefinder or something like this where you are scale focusing, which is amazing. And there's more lenses and stuff available for it. So I did back that campaign. I'm really hoping that it works out, because if it does, I will be a very happy person. Okay. Now, because I said I would show all my cameras, here's some 4 parts things, but we're going to go through this very quickly. This guy, this is a Nesco Flex. If you take a look here, this is really cool. It doesn't work right now, but normally when it would work, you'd pull up on that cover in front of the lens, and then that cover turns into the hood for the viewfinder, which is really cool. The colors are this classic like 1960s design. It reminds me of The Incredibles and stuff, this sort of mid-century design. Very pretty. It's similar to the Kodak Dual Flex that I just showed, where it's this pseudo TLR. It has 2 lenses, but you can really only, there's not very many options when you're taking your picture in terms of like manual controls. This is a Keystone camera. This is I think it's by Kodak. K1020 Keystone Reflex. You know, I actually don't know who makes this? I guess it's made by Keystone. This is a reflex camera that's designed for 127 film, I think. It's unique in that it's weird to see an SLR this small. Unfortunately, this one's broken. There's something wrong with the lens when you try to manually focus it. This is a Rokinon Happy S. It's a cheap little point and shoot camera, totally broken. I would like to try to fix it just because, I don't know, I feel like it can be fixed. It's mostly working. It's just like dirty and crusty. Ugh. Same situation with this guy. This is a Mamiya U. Now, I really like this camera. I think the design is really unique, and that's why I'd like to fix it. Really, the only issue with this is that the shutter button, which was made of rubber, has disappeared. So I feel like that's probably fixable, and it just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. So that's why I'm still hanging on to it. This is a tiny digital camera that my boyfriend found at the thrift store, and basically the charging port inside of it has been totally disconnected from the circuit board inside, so I just need to solder it. All right. Now, second to last is this guy. This is a Canon RC250. This is a video stills camera, almost similar to the Mavica. It's new in box. I'm not sure, actually. It's in the box, but a battery and a charger, which is why I haven't done anything with it yet. But hopefully at some point I'll be able to do that. I'm not even going to bother taking this out of the box because it's really not. It's cool to look at, but if you've seen Apple's early digital camera that they made, or basically any camera from this era, it's all the same stuff. Now we move on to the very last camera of mine, and I think that, to clarify, I think there's probably some other stuff floating around here that I missed, but we're defining a camera as like camera only. I have a Google Glass that I've only really ever used as a camera, but it's not really designed for that. So there's plenty of other stuff like that. But for now, let me grab my phone so I can... Oh, actually, you know what? I do have some other cameras here. First things first, DJI Action 4. This is a little action camera, super cool, does 4K, super stable. I want to get the Action 6 because that can do 8K. That would be cool. This is one of my most used cameras. This is a Insta360 3S. This is super cool because it looks like a normal action camera. But if you take a close look, this pops right off, and then you have this tiny little camera, does 4K. You can bring it around with you. A very short battery life, but I love using this, especially like attaching it to a camera, and I can get a POV perspective. And then this guy, this is a DJI Pocket 3. This is an incredible camera. This is a game changer. I remember when the first DJI Osmo came out, I was very excited about it because the idea of a tiny gimbal is really cool. But the problem with those is that the image quality wasn't that great. The image quality is amazing. There's like a background blur, there's autofocus. I don't know what they did with this version, but it's great. They nailed it. Super cool. It has some neat like tracking features as well, which I really like. It can do, since it's old DJI stuff, can connect to their little microphones, which is really cool. So yeah, I don't know, just overall, very pleased with this. And then to show the very last camera here, I'll go ahead and use the DJI. And this is the camera I've been shooting this all on. This is the Sony A7R5, I believe. We got a 20 to 50 millimeter lens on there, which is really nice. It's a nice range, and it's an f2.8, and it was more affordable than the 24 to 70. This is it's almost a hybrid camera. It has a really high resolution sensor. It's like 61 megapixels, I think. I really like a high resolution sensor for certain kinds of photography. If I'm film scanning and I'm doing 4x5 or 5x7 or whatever, a larger sensor a larger resolution sensor can be really helpful to capture all that detail. And then the other thing with this that was important to me is having good video quality. For a while, I had a GFX camera, which is a medium format, and it's a 100 megapixel sensor. Really cool. But the video performance on that was terrible. And obviously, I do quite a bit of videos. And at least at this point in my life, I just can't justify having a camera that only does pictures or only does video, or digital camera, I should say. I have so many film cameras that I need my digital camera to be able to handle both. At least my main digital mirrorless camera, obviously the DJI and the Action and the Insta360 are not the best at taking pictures. So that's why I got this guy, because this does a really nice 4K. It has incredible autofocus. It also does an 8K mode as well, which is really cool. I don't have an 8K monitor. Nobody I know uses 8K. But something about shooting in the highest resolution I can just makes me really excited. Now, that being said, this is in 4K, of course, because I'm not a maniac, but someday I would love to shoot everything in 8K, or even more if I could, because I'm insane. Yeah, I will say that moving from my previous only digital camera before this was the X100VI, and Fuji's autofocus is like pretty good, but it's not industry leading. And switching to a camera like this isn't a flagship camera, but it's very good. It's a very premium camera. The features, the autofocus accuracy is shocking. I was taking pictures of my cat with this camera, and I used the tracking feature to track the cat. And I was shocked by the tracking, the autofocus tracking. The cat went behind an object and came back into frame, and it picked back up on it. And I was so surprised that was a thing. I don't know. It's great to see a camera like this working, because it really is shocking, the different features and stuff they put into it. And the other thing that I really like about this is the display. So if you noticed, there's a flip out display, but it's not only a flip out display. It flips out, but it also can tilt up and down. This is a thing that I've never seen on another camera before, and it should be, because it is beautiful. It's so great and easy and convenient to use. Yeah, so I think that is it. I think I have finally shown you every working camera in my possession. So I think hopefully all of you are asleep by now. If you are intrigued by cameras, you should stick around. Particularly, you should go to my main channel, because I have a lot of videos about cameras on that. If you're just interested in ASMR, you should stick around here. And I'm going to try to put links to information about these cameras in the description. I will warn you, I like to get these ASMR videos out in a reasonable amount of time. And if I held this video back until I get all the links in the description, I'd be working on it for months probably. So it's going to take some time for me to add pictures and stuff, links to pictures, sample photos and stuff in the description. But if you have any questions, or you have anything that you would like to see like a sample picture from, definitely let me know, and I can try to get that added faster. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.